Joining us right now is Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, of course, a former member of the United States House of Representatives and a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel, author of the book Guardian of the Republic. His website, alanbwest.com. Colonel West, thanks for joining us, sir.
Hey, good morning. I'm not Rick either.
No, you're not.
No, and
thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
Colonel West, a lot to talk on the Sunday shows about the strategy, the president's strategy in Iraq. You know a little bit about Iraq. You were there. You fought, and many would say that your efforts there were on the positive side of America's engagement in Iraq. Do you agree with the president's strategy in just utilizing airstrikes and not having any combat forces involved?
Well, no, that's not a strategy. That's a political opportunist trying to show that he is doing something when it is not amounting to anything. And the proof is in the pudding, because if you are, as he said, degrading and destroying, first of all, your enemy is not going to be able to conduct offensive operations. And ISIS is conducting an offensive operation in the northern part of Syria. We see the siege and assault against the town of Kobani. And then you also see that they're continuing to spread themselves and extend their territory and gains in Al-Anbar province. 2 weeks ago, they took down an Iraqi army base, another massacre, and they're running suicide bomber operations into Baghdad.
Yeah.
And right now, I think the liberals and the left remembers that place, Abu Ghraib. They kept telling us about it pretty much so every day. Well, that's where ISIS is right now, and it's funny that you don't see that on the front page of the New York Times.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you this way, Colonel.
Of the airport.
You obviously have military experience. The president doesn't have military experience. His national security advisor, Susan Rice, does not have military experience. I mean, the closest person to him advising him here would be Chuck Hagel, I suppose, the defense secretary. Do you think he's getting the right advice? Do you think people are afraid to tell him what you and many other military experts have come to realize, which is combat troops are needed to achieve his goals?
Well, it's not that they're afraid. He is, and many others, as Susan Rice said yesterday, they're just intransigent ideologues, and they don't want to hear what the viable strategies are. Look, even General Billy Mitchell, who is a major, proponent of air power, will tell you that air power cannot win alone. And I hate to hear when people continue to say that Bill Clinton won in the Balkans just by using air power. That's a lie. The Serbian forces just withdrew.
Okay.
So you have to have, combat forces on the ground, especially so that you can direct precision munitions against the enemy when they're involved in close air support type of operations, instead of just bombing, empty buildings or trucks here or there running down the road. So it's not going to be effective. And the fact that they, Susan Rice yesterday said that, we're going to continue down this path and we're supporting the Kurds. We're not supporting the Kurds. They haven't gotten any type of weapons, arms support, or anything whatsoever. And ISIS is basically trying to do siege warfare and wear them out there in Kobani. And the Turks are not helping at all.
We keep hearing from Susan Rice that nobody at the Pentagon has come forward and made the recommendation that there should be U.S. troops on the ground. Now, I'm sure that you have conversations with people who are still in the military. Do you believe that to be true?
No, of course not. And you would think the Obama administration would have learned their lesson not to put Susan Rice on a Sunday talk show. The military planners are always going to give you options and make recommendations. The problem is that you have a president that continues to say what he is not going to do. So basically, those recommendations are probably being blocked before they can get anywhere near the National Security Council and the president, but they are there.
In other words, if the military hears that the president doesn't want that option, then they know it's a losing argument and they're not going to bring it to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have contingency plans all the time, Larry and Brian, and those contingency plans are sitting there, but the president is refusing to hear them. He only wants to hear what he wants to hear.
Let's turn our focus now to the other topic of the day, and that is Ebola, Colonel West. We're now learning that an American nurse who was in contact with this Liberian national who came here and lied about his contact with Ebola patients, this nurse has now contracted Ebola 16 days later. Is it time now to shut down all traffic from these nations where Ebola is running rampant?
It was time a long time ago. And let's make this comparative analysis. The Obama administration shut down all flights going into Ben Gurion Airport because a rocket landed about 3 to 4 kilometers away. so now we have something that's even worse that has infiltrated this country, an incredibly threatening virus. And they should have, sealed off and cordoned off West Africa. That's the only way that you can deal with a contagion like this. And so now we're going to have to worry about the people that this nurse has been in contact with. So it continues to spread. It continues to get, wider in its reach. And we have an administration that's totally reactive. You have a CDC director that, people are losing trust and confidence in this guy every single day.
Hang on a second. I mean, we have a healthcare professional, a trained healthcare professional who followed, we are told, all the protocols and still was able to contract the Ebola virus in Dallas. And yet we're sending a whole lot of military people into West Africa, and they're not near as well trained as this nurse was.
Yeah, they're not as well trained, they're not as well equipped, and I don't understand why we're sending members of the 101st Airborne Division and Marines to fight a virus, but yet we can't send them to fight the virus that is ISIS. It is the complete hypocrisy of this administration. And look, they're already starting to point fingers, at the hospital there in Dallas, saying that they didn't use proper protocols, and that's why this nurse became infected. This is becoming an Abbott and Costello, comedy routine skit, and it's amateur hour coming from the White House.
Is there a competency problem with the president and his administration at this point?
Well, there's a huge competency problem. There's always been a huge competence problem. And also, I think people starting to realize there is a crisis of leadership. With all these things that are going on, what we just talked about, where was the president last week? He was traipsing around out there and Gwyneth Paltrow, adoring him, talking about how beautiful he is and how handsome he is and how he should be given all powers to be a dictator. This is what he likes. He likes to be in front of the fawning crowds. He does not want to be there in the White House solving these problems that are facing the American people.
Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, again, the website is alanbwest.com. The book is Guardian of the Republic. You spending any time in New Hampshire or Iowa these days, Colonel West?
No, and it's starting to get cold up there, so probably not.
All right.
Although
probably
I was in Moline, Illinois last week, and so I ran along the Mississippi River and I could see Iowa.
You can see Iowa.
Right across the river.
Yeah.
Some kind of
That's
indication.
like seeing Russia.
From your house.
That's right.
Thank you, Colonel West.
Take